Hello, folks, and welcome to the SAFe Australia online meetup. I think that's what we're called. And today we are thrilled to have repeat guest Andrew Sales, who's been on quite a journey with us. I don't think when he first started presenting to us, he had the esteemed title of Chief Methodologist and Chief Product Owner at Scaled Agile. So many of us can say we knew him when. Anyway, very thrilled to have Andrew with us today. Recently back from the SAFe Summit in Amsterdam. I'm assuming many of you are joining us today because you did not go to Amsterdam because, cost of living, flights, trying to get from Australia through the Middle East, all of these things, very, very difficult. So Andrew's going to share some updates from the summit, his keynote from the summit, which was a couple of weeks ago. We have the chat open. Feel free to ask questions. We will direct Andrew's attention to them at the end. I think that's everything. I think I'm going to hand over to you, Andrew, unless I missed something, in which case, knock yourself out. You can let everybody know what I was supposed to say.
No, that's great. Just let me know that can you hear me clearly? And I think you can see the slide, right?
Yes, you look great. Not sure if it's the real you or the AI you, but you look great. Whichever one it is, and we can see your slides.
Yeah, I had a message pop up saying my microphone was, I think you can hear me, right?
You cut
Oh,
out then for 1 second, but other than that, you've been fine.
okay, well, just will you cut out?
Uh, when you move your head to the side, it loses you. So I don't think
Okay,
you're probably going to be trying to play with your keyboard if it's still broken
okay,
while you're talking to us. So I think it's just when you move, you cut out. But when you're
okay.
looking at us, it seems fine.
Okay, well, just please do. I'm just checking which microphone it's got. Do let me know if it cuts out at any point, okay?
We'll
So,
do. I'll
um,
I'll wave.
let me get started then. Really, well, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to Em to have this opportunity just to go through really again the keynote that I did at the SAFe Summit a few weeks ago. And if you've seen some of these keynotes over the last few years, you'll know that we use the summit as a bit of a forcing function to evolve the framework and some of the associated products in what we hope is fairly meaningful ways. So twice a year, making sure that we have some pretty critical announcements to share. And I hope there's some important evolutions in what I'm going to share with you today. So the topic of my keynote when I was on stage at the summit was architecting for the future. And you'll see why that's the topic that I think brings together a number of things that I want to talk about in the slides I'm going to share today. So I started the talk in Amsterdam just by putting this slide up. You may have seen this if you've been in any of our AI native classes. If you haven't seen it, I'll give you a quick overview now. But the EDGE framework is how we think about the climate, the current conditions in which all organizations are trying to compete. And it really recognizes the four forces that I think we're all feeling fairly fairly closely every single day in the work that we're doing. So just very quickly, of course, it recognizes the rapid growth that we're seeing in AI technologies, in particular, the disruptive change that we are now seeing across every industry, regardless of the organization, the disruption that's being driven. And of course, a lot of this is being driven by generative AI that is uncovering and helping organizations discover brand new capabilities as the technology advances, the capabilities themselves start to advance alongside it. And of course, connected to that are these emergent aspects. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about AI and what's going on in the world of AI is the emergent business opportunities that are coming alongside the advancing technology. But the long story short is that we are feeling this incredible amount of change rapidly, disruptive. And also, I think one of the things that organizations are really struggling with is the unpredictable nature of the climate in which they're operating. As they start to think about what their strategy needs to be, as they start to think about where to place their bets, the world almost changes instantly, and they have to go back to the drawing board and start to think again about what it is they need to do. So I put this up at the summit as a bit of a question that I posed to the audience. How do we truly architect for a future if that future is itself, by definition, fairly unpredictable? And the question was answered in what I think is three important ways. The first way is to build a truly adaptive operating model. And I'm going to go through each of these as I go through my slides in more detail. The second piece is that we need to help organizations truly unlock real returns with AI, not just help them install tools or technologies, but really think about how they connect the opportunities in front of them with real business value. And the third one is, I think for all of us on this call, with our experience of lean and agile methods, AI is disrupting those as well. And we need to think about what it really means to talk about AI-empowered agility and the opportunities that AI presents to how we actually practice things like SAFe. And I'll come to that as well. So these are the three things I want to talk about. And they describe also some of the areas of evolution that we've been building into the framework itself. So if I get into this first piece around building an adaptive operating model, I just want to put this slide up as a chance for us all to kind of reflect a little bit. This was from an HBR article earlier this year. I put the name at the bottom. If you haven't read it, it's a great read. And what it's really asking us to think about is, do transformations really represent the way that modern organizations need to evolve? So when that ecosystem is healthy, in other words, the organization has the ability to constantly sense shifts and prune unproductive activities and nurture growth avenues, transformations are rarely needed. Now, the article does make it clear that when we do need a transformation, organizations that are adaptive can often do them in a more productive manner. But the question that it's asking us to think about is, in an age of AI, in an edge world, are there some dangers and risks that are associated with the way we used to think about traditional transformations? And traditional transformations, of course, tended to batch up, change. They tended to run for multiple years, potentially. They tended to have, a lot of the time, implications where many, many things in the organization are changed at once. We throw it all up in the air, it lands, and we kind of go again. We sometimes need that. It is still the case that many organizations can't get from A to B without some truly transformative activities. But I think we're moving into a mode now where we have to think about the work we do as change agents and the work that we do with the SAFe framework specifically as a more adaptive operating model, rather than something that has to be only brought into play when we're driving organizational transformation. And this storyline of trying to build a more adaptive, scaled agile framework really started last year. And it started last year when we began to simplify the big picture. We started to ask ourselves, what is critical to make SAFe operate successfully? How can we build a big picture that is, by design, more adaptable to how the organization may need to put it to work? We started to also organize SAFe around the 5 disciplines, each discipline having clear objectives, clear set of activities, clear outcomes that were associated with them, starting to allow organizations to build their own path through the framework in a way that makes sense for them. And we see some organizations working with SAFe where LPM is the most critical thing for them. They need guidance and new ways of working around how do they manage their strategy, their investments, their product portfolio. For other organizations, things like focusing on product development flow is the most important thing. How do we go from good ideas to great products? How do we truly satisfy our customers and make sure that we're meeting their needs with the value that we're delivering? When I think about how we really need to make SAFe a more adaptable operating model, I think there's one area where we needed to do some significant change. And I was really delighted at the summit a few weeks ago to announce an important update to how we think about leadership and culture. And I want to share that update with you. Some of you may have already navigated to the new pages. If you haven't, you'll be seeing it for the first time here. I still think the goal that we are pursuing remains the same. The Lean Agile organization, I still think, represents our best understanding of how organizations maximize and accelerate the value they deliver. And in fact, if you ask me whether I think the Lean Agile organization is relevant in the age of AI, I think it's even more relevant. And I'll come on to that a little bit when I get to the third part of the talk. We know in SAFe the importance of a guiding coalition to help us get there. And we've always spoken about a guiding coalition, but we've added 2 important pieces here. Number one is, of course, we recognize the ASPC alongside the SPC. We have new guidance to help ASPCs think about how they help organizations really manage organizational complexity. But the one I want to call out as a new addition to how we think about change is this idea of local champions. And if you think about the change that all of you have been supporting either directly or indirectly in organizations, think about the work that the local champions have done. the people that truly know how to get work done, the people that truly know how to change the system, the people that truly know how to make new ways of working stick. I think it's an important part of the guiding coalition story that we've potentially missed over the years. It's now part of it. And if I build out this story a little bit, I think there are some elements that we've done a good job of talking to previously. I think actually we've done a pretty good job of describing what it means to become a lean agile leader, embracing the lean agile mindset, embodying the values, really making sure that you are leading by example in the way that you are turning up. And I think we've done a pretty good job on the right-hand side around starting to describe the culture of continuous learning. So this is a culture that is driven by data. It's a culture that is always trying new things. It's a culture that is happy to highlight failures as well as celebrating successes. But the piece in the middle is the piece that I don't think we've always done such a great story of telling. And this is the bit that is really new to how we think about leadership and culture. And this is the piece around building an adaptive operating model with SAFe. And I want to take a few minutes to talk you through the elements that I think comprise this. I think the first step is still the same. I think that actually the implementation roadmap, the proven path that 20,000 plus organizations have themselves gone through, the patterns that we have that help us understand that the best way to implement lean and agile is to give people the knowledge and then give them the opportunity to practice it, to train everyone and launch trains remains the same. The first piece of this puzzle, in my mind, is implementing SAFe. It is how they get their first experience of really working with lean and agile at scale. And then the question becomes, well, what's the second piece of that puzzle? And I was really happy that finally, I think it was last year, we were able to deliver the brand new customizing SAFe context. And I hope you've heard me say this many times before. And if you haven't, hopefully Em can vouch that she's heard me say this before. You know, I truly believe that one, SAFe is a framework. But secondly, I truly believe that any framework should be measured by its ability to truly adapt to specific working conditions. And we had for some time quite a lot of tension around the customizing SAFe guidance. Used well, it can be hugely beneficial. Used poorly, it can lead to really detrimental outcomes. So we were always hesitant to sort of formalize it. But we finally did do that last year. And I hope many of you have seen the customizing SAFe article. It really decomposes the framework down into these 7 aspects you see on the slide here. It gives you a nice repeatable set of steps to look at how SAFe is being implemented in a particular context and question some of the adaptations you might want to make, ensuring that each one that you change really aligns with particular guardrails. So customizing SAFe is absolutely now part and parcel of the storyline of building an adaptable operating model. And just as a quick reminder, if you folks haven't seen it already, you know, the brand new advanced SBC course that we put out last year specifically as a whole lesson on helping those individuals help the organization in turn to understand how to customize safely. What are the things to be mindful of, how to measure the success, how to know when it's the right thing to do. And supporting that, you know, please do have a look if you haven't looked at it before. We've got the brand new guidance article. There's a workshop that is described in that article, also available for ASPCs, as well as the course that I mentioned. So this was the second piece of this puzzle. And I think it brings organizations a fairly long way in terms of they're starting to work with SAFe and now they're customizing to their context. But there's a third piece, which is a storyline we've been building out for about 1.5 years now that really culminated on stage a few weeks ago. And it's a storyline that started with this idea of solving real business problems. And I just want to give you a bit of background here as to where this came from. So in 2025, we launched the State of SAFe report, and the insights that we got from the report were really interesting. And to summarize them, what they really showed is that although the number of organizations practicing SAFe continues to increase, there is actually a significant minority that are really struggling to get the benefits they expect from the framework. And when we started to dig into why they were struggling to get the benefits, it was that there were truly systemic problems that were getting in their way. Now, these are not all the problems. These are just a subset of them. But actually, through conversation with customers, through looking at our co-pilot responses, through the survey itself, we've identified so far 27 business problems that are truly holding organizations back. Significant things like how do we really make sure we can execute on our portfolio strategy? How can we really move to a brand new way of funding that enables agility at scale? How can we really make sure that architecture at the enterprise level is an enabling capability and not something that is holding us back in terms of the agility that we're trying to achieve? To address these business problems, the second step that we took was to build SAFe competencies around them. And this work continues, but if you haven't seen these already, we have one SAFe competency for one business problem. And the idea of these SAFe competencies is that we somewhat move away from the traditional approach we've taken, which has been to give you an article that's about information, but maybe not always the practical steps you need, and instead build competencies around true business outcomes that can be achieved when this problem is addressed. Things like the application guidance you need. In this case, if we want to solve a problem around ensuring we can truly execute on our portfolio strategy, understanding how we organize our portfolios effectively is a critical step. Alongside that, we need the resources to actually do that effectively. They're all part of the competency, as well as a journey that describes how we really master this particular area. I think, hearing from customers directly, these competencies related to business problems and having this sort of business problem lens into the framework, which gives you a bit of a more modular approach into SAFe, has been refreshing for them and a way to think about SAFe that doesn't have to be the big bang transformation. But so far as I hear from how customers have put this to work, it tends to be addressing one business problem with one competency. But all of us on this call are systems thinkers. And when we think about how do we help organizations improve, we tend to think about it in a much more holistic way. And that was what I introduced on stage in Summit a few weeks ago. A more holistic way to really think about how we start to connect the guidance in SAFe, represented by the competencies, with the business problems that our organization is facing and the goal that it wants to achieve. And this tool that we've put together, based on what we were hearing from customers, this SAFe Competency Journey Map, is just that. It's expressing how an organization builds a set of key activities in terms of amplifying their own application of SAFe in a way that is directly connected to their most important business problems and helping them achieve their business outcomes. This new guidance around solving business problems for me is truly the final step of what it means to become an adaptive organization. And no one of these things replaces the others. Implementing SAFe, I think, is still the right place for organizations new to lean and agile. Customizing SAFe to adapt it to their context is critical, but we have to help organizations then move into this final step of continuously improving the way they work by understanding what are their biggest challenges and addressing them with ways of working that will help to solve and mitigate them. So one of the things we were able to do at the summit in Amsterdam was announce a brand new article that really brings together this storyline that we've been working on, like I said, for about a year and a half now. So we've had the competencies, the business problems. We've never had the connective tissue that really brings everything together. And although it might seem like a fairly innocuous small thing, one thing central to this article, which I'm going to illustrate in a minute, are these SAFe competency cards. And you'll see that the SAFe competency cards, which you can download from the article yourselves, in my mind, these become a physical representation, if you like, of a more modular way of thinking about the Scaled Agile framework. And each of these cards talks about one of those systemic business problems. It talks about the competency that you need to address it. It talks about the outcomes that organizations can truly achieve once they've solved that problem and started to move forward. And when you look at the article, we've also started to use those cards and put them to work in terms of a workshop that we've been testing with organizations running at the summit to help them go through these steps of building a SAFe competency journey map. And quickly, I want to show you this on the call now. So step one, of course, we know this storyline, align on the goal. What is it that we as an organization are trying to achieve? And if we just choose something for today that we can all relate to, let's imagine that our goal as an organization is to truly become more customer-centric. The ask, as we move into this final phase of building a truly adaptive operating model, is to now think deeply about what are the business problems that are preventing us from achieving that goal. It might be there are things outside of the ones that we've highlighted, but I promise you from the list of 27, which is always expanding, most of the systemic issues that we've seen over the last 5 or 10 years are well represented. And of course, what we want to think about is how can we organize and prioritize our business problems in terms of how urgent they are to solve versus actually how impactful they are in terms of how many areas of the organization they might be impacting, in terms of the actual impact they are causing, in terms of the consequences. And we're going to use those SAFe competency cards to do this. And since I announced this on stage a couple of weeks ago, I've already had a partner share with me that even this way of thinking and talking about SAFe and opening up the language for organizations who may have been on this journey for 5 or 6 years, but maybe aren't getting all the outcomes they expect, is a really nice kind of way to bring the key stakeholders together to start to run some of these workshops, surfacing the challenges they're facing. Now, of course, we know that technically everything in the top right box is the highest priority, but we also know that often many business problems start to be related together in terms of something more significant or more systematic. These set of problems then start to emerge as the things that we seriously need to address. And the next step, of course, is to start thinking about how we can sequence them appropriately. And what we found sometimes, of course, when we're running these workshops with customers is that, yes, sometimes you need to do things out of sequence. Maybe we can't actually help people think about how to validate their investment opportunities before they truly organize their portfolios in a lean, agile manner. And of course, the other thing when we're sequencing is to think very deeply about how many things we can do at once. What is the appetite for our organization truly addressing these business problems, one at a time, two at a time, three at a time? What is the urgency we're facing also? And then coming back to those local champions I talked about, where we've seen this competency story work really well is where individuals get assigned as a champion for helping us solve this problem. They galvanize a team around it. They have responsibility for execution, things like measuring, communication, and also where needed, escalating problems that might be getting in their way. But the upshot of this very quick look through this new guidance is this slide. For those organizations that have implemented SAFe, for those organizations that have customized to their context, the question I often get is, where do we go next? And one of the areas that I think we have to help organizations go next is continually identify, prioritize, and address the biggest business problems that are surfacing. We are always going to have a biggest challenge that we need to face. We might have 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them that we need to address. And these SAFe competency journey maps now give us a language in the framework to talk about how do we build a truly adaptable journey for this organization's specific problems, for achieving their specific goal, and identifying the specific competencies they need to work on, separate to implementing SAFe, to address these and achieve that. So I only gave you a very quick look today, but I hope coming across on this call as I talk to you was kind of the impactful sort of third step of how we're now thinking about SAFe as a more modular way of truly addressing these challenges. Please have a look at the new article. Maybe you could put the article in the chat if you get a moment. One thing we didn't mention at the beginning, actually, is we're going to share all of these resources afterwards with the folks on the call in the email, right? So you'll make sure all the links are sent out. You'll have all of this.
Great.
So that's the first piece around building a more adaptive operating model. And I think that is a critical starting point for how we truly architect for the future. Because if we have an adaptable operating model, we're kind of set up nicely for whatever challenges come our way. But the second thing I want to talk about is this unlocking real returns with AI. And, I think we've got to the point now where the ability for organizations, whether they're harnessing AI through their workflows or building AI directly into the products and solutions, their ability to do that successfully is strongly correlated to the success and ability for them to compete as an organization. And we've seen many organizations with some great success stories in this field. The reason I shared the IKEA one, by the way, on the summit keynote is, yes, what they did was deploy their Billy bot, which was an automated bot for managing kind of customer service requests. But what they did, which was really interesting if you haven't heard this story, is they retrained the staff that worked, 8,500 call center employees. They retrained them, moved them from being a cost center to being a profit center, and retrained them as design advisors working across the business. And actually, not only did they derive huge savings from the deploying of AI, they drove huge revenue actually from new business opportunities that they generated. They were able to go into this activity with a real understanding of what does value look like for them as an organization and how can AI support that. But alongside that, I also put this slide up on stage at the summit. And I'm sure you folks have all seen slides like this many times in different guises. This was one from a recent report that we did in partnership with the ROAI Institute. This was specifically about generative AI, but again, really highlighting that organizations are struggling to go from what appears to be huge potential to actually delivering value at scale. And as I was kind of thinking about why this was, this slide here it's interesting because on the one hand, this slide seems to show me that the possibilities of AI are endless. You know, the tools, the technologies, the systems that we have, unending in the capabilities that they provide. But I think at the same time, this slide represents the biggest challenge that organizations are facing today. This myriad of different tools and technologies is driving a conversation and thought process that is just starting in the wrong place. And it reminded me of this quote. I know this is an old quote now, so forgive me, but it's a pretty good one, this Steve Jobs quote. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but the essence of it is we can't start with the technology and go looking for a customer need or a business problem to solve. We've got to start with a conversation around what is the business problem or customer need, and then go and find the technology to solve it. And the good thing about AI in my mind is that we've never had the technology so good. I almost believe that any business problem we come up with that we need to address, there will be a technology to support it. So as part of flipping this conversation, one thing I asked the audience to do at the summit is just take a moment to pause and think about how organizations create value. And what I love about this 2x2 that you see on the slide here, it just succinctly describes how organizations create value today. So some organizations focus on creating value through externally facing, customer facing activities. Maybe they're building products and services. Maybe they're scaling existing products and services across new markets. Some organizations focus on deriving value by minimizing costs. Maybe they're driving operational efficiencies. Maybe they're mitigating things like risk or improving quality. And some organizations, of course, can operate in more than one box at one time. And for each of these boxes, sometimes the work we do is fairly tailored. Sometimes it might be fairly standardized and we're just implementing it. But this is a pretty common description of what it looks like to create organizational value. And if we take this as our starting point when we think about AI, what's interesting is there are value patterns that start to surface that I believe present a much better way for organizations to think about AI than the slide that we saw previously with all the tools and technologies. And as I go through these 5 slides, yes, I know that there probably are another 10 value patterns, but I present these 5 as perhaps a bit of a example of the 80-20 rule. I think for the customers that we've been speaking to, we found that these 5 get them an awful long way in terms of the conversations they need to have and how they need to think about what their AI journey is. So let me show you what these look like. The first value pattern, pretty common, is what we call knowledge and decision support. And you can see the description on the slide here at the bottom. This is AI that is able to synthesize information, surface insights, and really augment human judgment. And the great example here, of course, is AI that is able to answer complex questions across thousands of documents. It's able to summarize data. It's able to generate insights at a scale that us humans simply can't take at the moment. And the nice thing about this pattern in particular, as we start to talk to organizations about where AI might help them, it's a really great pattern for significantly improving existing products, services, and operational workflows. So this is a great place for organizations to start as they start thinking about how they might apply AI. The second one, and we talked about this a little bit with the IKEA one, is this customer interaction piece. And the reason that a lot of organizations are getting excited about this pattern is it gives you the opportunity to really scale growth without the traditional linear cost that is associated. So you see CFOs, for example, getting very excited about this pattern. Just like the IKEA example, there's other examples. On the stage at the summit, I mentioned one around an online bank that installed AI to handle over 2 million conversations per month with its customers. It was able to do it in 35 languages, 24/7 uptime, and actually no degradation in the customer satisfaction levels either. So the scaling opportunities through this pattern are just enormous. The third one, which I don't think always surfaces as the most shiny or glamorous or most exciting pattern, but actually it's the one where the biggest ROI is often available, is workforce automation. And I think we're seeing, particularly in the SAFe world, where a lot of it is about the ways of working, that automating workflows and activities, things like repetitive tasks, processes, document creation, all the things you see on the slide here, presents a great opportunity to derive value pretty quickly. The one caution that we're seeing with organizations with this pattern is that AI doesn't solve or fix broken processes. In fact, AI only amplifies what's there already today. So the work we're doing with customers is to make sure that we have these workflows and processes well understood before we start adding AI into them. And then if you think that one wasn't particularly glamorous and gets often overlooked, this one definitely gets overlooked. And this is the pattern around risk and control. And the tendency here is for organizations to only pay attention to this pattern when something catastrophic tends to happen. But this is the pattern that describes the application of AI as a bit of a watchdog, ensuring compliance, regulation, monitoring fraud, all those kind of things. And you see this, of course, very much in things like the banking industry, almost instantaneous real-time fraud detection. This is one where I recommend that true ROI calculations work really well. It's really easy to have a conversation with an organization around what is the cost of infringing some of these compliance or regulatory rules that we have to stay with versus actually investing in AI to help us monitor and manage those. And that conversation goes a long way actually to helping people think about how this pattern may be applied across their business. And then the last one is the expert productivity. And this, of course, is how do we use AI to really amplify and extend the skills that we have available. This one is really meaningful for executives because, of course, one of the hardest things for them able to do is replicate the expertise that they have. Retaining good people, hiring good people, skills are in short supply. If there's an opportunity for them to actually supplement those skills with real AI expert productivity, and in fact harness those individuals to help us judge the outputs of AI and make better decisions and understand how to meet our customer needs, this one gets them very excited. The challenge with this one, of course, is we have to always remember that AI doesn't really have a concept of what good looks like. Experts need to be in the loop somewhere, but there's definitely opportunities in here that organizations need to think about. And I share these today because the approach we're taking in Scaled Agile, which seems to be, deriving some useful conversations with customers, is leave the tools and technologies to one side. That'll come. The first step is understanding, number one, how you create value today. And then number two, the opportunities for amplifying that value or creating new value through the application of AI. And even I've gone as far as just asking organizations to take these 5 value patterns for each one, ask yourself what it would look like implemented in your organization. And I think it's a great way to connect AI with real business needs. When we share the resource kit afterwards, there's a nice executive guide that goes through these in more detail than I can talk about today. And there's another executive guide, the one much smaller there around the AI native organization, that if you haven't seen it before, we'll share this model with you. I don't have a lot of time to dig into this today, but this model is how we're thinking about the AI native organization. And of course, a big part of being an AI native organization is that piece in the top left. What is our strategic intent and AI vision? A lot of that is answered by thinking deeply about those value patterns. I did announce on stage a brand new AI native course, and I'll just mention it here briefly. Of course, can follow up in more detail. But we know in SAFe the benefit of really training the leaders at all levels to understand the change journey we're on. Really delighted that we have the 1-day Leading the AI Native course ready to go, helping leaders at all levels understand actually the work they need to do to support their organization in making the moves and the shifts to become AI native. But in the time I've got left, I want to talk about this piece a little bit at the bottom here, which is about AI-empowered agility. And this will bring us to the final piece of the 3 pillars of this sort of architecting of the future. I'm not going to mention this slide. I'm just going to leave it in here. Of course, just for visibility, know that supporting the AI native landscape is not only the leader training, but the change agent and foundations as well. But I want to come to this piece and have, leave enough time to really go through this in a bit of detail. When I got on stage at the summit, I think it was in Denver, maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, before Amsterdam, we talked about AI-empowered agility being the foundation of an AI native organization. If we really want to build for the future, our organizations have to be built on a foundation of AI-empowered agility. But when I mentioned it at that time, I really didn't have much detail as to what I thought we meant by that. It was putting a line in the sand and then letting us start to evolve as the world around us was evolving, what we thought that needed to look like. Now, when I got on stage in Amsterdam, it was really nice to be able to add a lot more detail around the work we're doing in SAFe to become AI empowered. And I wanted to start just to show you the definition of how we're thinking about this. And I think what's really interesting about AI empowered agility is that it has this dual definition. For me, it is the capability that we have to use when we develop and deploy AI driven solutions. There is no other way to work with AI solutions other than to have AI-empowered agility. And we'll talk in a minute what it looks like. But the bit in blue, I think, is really critical for us. AI is also continuously offering the opportunity to enhance the speed, quality, and adaptability of lean agile methods. It changes how we practice agile. It changes how we practice lean. It changes how we practice SAFe. And as we started to research this and think deeply and talk to customers, I think what we started to realize is that this wasn't about throwing out everything we've done for the last 10 years. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It was about amplifying the work we've done to make sure that we're harnessing the benefits of AI. And I put this slide up on stage in Amsterdam. These 4 things, I think, do a pretty good job of describing the way that we practice lean and agile today. Summarizing those 2 bodies of knowledge: direct focus on outcomes, a relentless focus on outcomes, iterations, of course, at the heart of agile. Development at scale is all what SAFe is about. And we know how important cross-functional teams have been in helping us build this new way of working. For each of these, I believe that there is a significant shift that an organization needs to go through to become AI empowered. And I want to talk about those 4 shifts in these final 5 or 10 minutes. The first shift, a focus on outcomes is still important, but now this needs to be a focus on outcomes and intent. And what do I mean by intent? I mean the purpose, I mean the why, I mean the fact that actually the way we use requirements has changed fundamentally. Requirements used to be human consumable artifacts. Requirements are now AI consumable. And we need to include the intent in all of the artifacts that we create, because intent is what drives the outputs of the AI. Outcomes are still important. That is what we're expecting to get if we actually achieve the goals in front of us. But the intent is ensuring that the AI is clearly understanding the why and the purpose of what we're asking it to do. And I put a simple example up on stage. And if you go to the brand new AI empowered article, you'll see that we have at least 20 things, real actions that organizations can do today to make their SAFe implementations AI empowered. But this simple example of what it looks like to include intent and requirements. A simple feature looks different in the age of AI. Yes, it has a benefit hypothesis, but it also has an intent. What is the reason that we are exploring this particular opportunity? And it has this intent because the way we're going to use this feature is not to give it to a developer. We're going to give it directly to the AI. We're going to give the AI a challenge. We're going to ask it to pair with us, and we're going to ask the AI to complete a task in terms of providing us technical design documentation. So all through SAFe over the years, we've emphasized the importance of outcomes. That remains. We also need to emphasize the importance of intent throughout the entire scaled requirements model. The second thing that I think needs to be shifted is, yes, iterative learning cycles are important. In fact, I think the idea of an iteration is even more important in the age of AI as an opportunity to stop and reflect on all the opportunities that we are presented through fast design loops. But we need to do something else with AI. We need to incorporate rapid experimentation. AI, as we all know, is this amazing productivity multiplier. And I believe that it has fundamentally changed the way that we think about PDCA for the better. There are steps in the PDCA that are now supplemented with AI. We know that the opportunity to plan looks different. We have the opportunity to use AI to consider multiple scenarios, dedicating our time to making good strategic decisions. The do step is just fundamentally different. We can put set-based design into practice like we've never had the opportunity before, using AI to accelerate not only one design option, but multiple design options, allowing us to focus on things like intent and context. And then we know that in the check step, we have this almost near instantaneous review cycle. We do need human in the loop. Edge cases, hallucinations, bias, all these things are important. And then the adjust, of course. Our role as humans on the team is going to be highly focused on making good decisions using the insights that AI helps us generate. We are seeing teams in SAFe on a daily basis running the rapid experimentation cycles inside their iterations, using the iterations to make sure they're aligned with what it is they need to achieve, but multiple times a day running through PDCA hourly in a way that previously would take multiple weeks or multiple days at least. It's a really exciting opportunity to think what agility looks like at the micro scale. And then the third shift, I think we solved the problem fairly well of development at scale. I think the challenge in front of organizations today is innovation at scale. And I think there's a great opportunity for all of us to think deeply about what that might look like. The challenge is that all of us today have the tools to be innovative in ways that we never had before, whether it's coding, research, writing legal documents, things that actually were completely outside of our area of expertise and our availability. We are all now innovators with the tools that we have available. I share one example here, but there's more in the guidance article. I think we have constructs in SAFe that can really help us to get the balance between how do we govern innovation in a way that is scalable, but also make sure we ensure that teams and individuals have the autonomy to be successful. We have patterns like understanding how to build platform arts that create reusable services that can be the basis of innovation. We have the idea of enabling arts for enabling teams to train them on what it means to use these systems effectively. We have governance patterns in SAFe to make sure that we're all using data in a way that aligns with our organization's policies. And of course, we have things like communities of practice to make sure that we're building up areas of local expertise. And as we learn things locally, we're rolling them back into the bigger system. Organizations that get the balance right between governing innovation and unlocking innovation, I think, are the ones that are truly going to be successful in the age that we're currently in. And then finally, we know that cross-functional teams are really the lifeblood of agile release trains and agility in any form. They change as well. Cross-functional AI augmented teams. We're already starting to see people push down the team size to 5 or 7 people, removing maybe some of the overhead with larger teams. But the biggest difference, of course, we're seeing is that team workflows just look different. And the encouragement that you'll see in the article is that it asks you to think about what would it look like to integrate AI teammates today. And as I step through this fairly simple example, we see great opportunities for humans working alongside AI. In this particular example, the human is focused on providing the intent, approving the AC, but all of the work to generate the requirements is being moved off to the AI. Similarly, in terms of the code generation, the mock-ups, critical roles being played by designers and engineers to validate, decide, to guide, but the AI is doing the heavy lifting. And of course, when it comes to deploying, the AI can support us in things like A/B testing. The final decision to release most likely sits with the human. Just a simple example, but these AI augmented teams are becoming the norm. You'll see us talking a lot more about them in SAFe. Just before I close out, I'm just going to remind you, if you haven't seen them before, we are going through some significant work at Scaled Agile, not only to bring AI into our framework, but also across our courseware, whether it's these courses, AI native or other courses. I think the thing about AI that is so different is that it's built on this idea of a true human-centric AI culture. So the organizations that are really investing in upskilling are the ones that are providing their workforce with the ability to think through these shifts meaningfully and think about what it looks like for their particular workflows and how they work in their teams and arts. So please, if you just do one thing after this webinar, please do have a look at the brand new AI-empowered agility landing page that we put together. I hope you'll find it includes a lot of practical guidance, not only around what I spoke about, but other topics like responsible AI, around how to AI augmented teams, lots of suggestions there. There's AI self-safe skills in there, lots of things that I hope you can explore, including the 4 shifts that I talked about. And then let me close out fairly quickly, then we can have a good 10 minutes for questions. After this webinar, so Emma's going to send out an email. You'll get the resource kit that will have everything we talked about, and the links to the articles, the executive guides. I think you get some PDFs of these slides. I know it's being recorded as well, Em. And although Em told me that probably it's a long way to travel from Australia to San Diego, I did want to mention that the next SAFe Summit is in San Diego, September 14th to 18th. It'll be another forcing function for us to really continue to amplify the AI-empowered SAFe story. And with that, I just want to say thank you for giving me the chance to talk through these themes again. I'm really looking forward to some of your questions in what I think is 10 minutes that we have left, Em.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. So much going on in your world, and certainly I hope to make it to San Diego, and maybe some folks will make it as well. Over to you, team. Questions, you can drop them in the chat. We will pick them up, or you can speak to Andrew because he's a live person and you're a live person, and that's an option as well. What's on your mind, folks? Stunned silence, Andrew. What did you do to them? They're not normally like this.
I'm sure the questions will come. Just takes one.
I got one. I can't find my hand, so it's Gerald.
Hello, stranger.
Hey Andy, how you doing, bud?
Oh,
Um,
hey, Gerald. I was just reading a couple of questions in chat. So there are questions in chat. Hi, Gerald. Nice to see you. Really nice
I
to see you.
yeah, okay. A question: do you guys foresee any changes in the framework with like the timeline? So 10, 8,
Yeah.
10, 12 week PIs. If we think team sizes are going to get smaller because they're automated, what sort of things are being considered around how this begins to
Yeah.
impact timelines and events?
Yeah. Great question. So I think honestly, Gerald, what's going to happen is I think there's two things that look like they're changing in meaningful ways. I think number one is, SAFe is built on a cadence. Everything is cadence based. And number one is the things that we do at the edges of those cadences. A lot of those actually now have the opportunity to happen kind of throughout the time box itself. So as a very simple example, is it still the case that teams are waiting to the end of a 2 week iteration to do a team level demo? I mean, actually, what I'm seeing out in the field is teams are hacking together stuff, doing a quick demo, then moving to the next thing. So I think number one is like actually when we do certain activities might shift. In addition to that, I think new activities are emerging. We're seeing a lot of things emerge from customers who are talking to us about the importance of some of these checks and balances that need to happen to make sure that AI is tracking in the right direction. But to your question, I completely agree. I think that's the second thing. I think there are some timelines that we were very specific about in the past that I think we don't necessarily have to be so specific about in the future. Just know that when we're evolving the framework, we're always managing a spectrum. There are some companies that are brand new to lean and agile. Maybe they're in a very regulated sector. For them, the idea that their employees are allowed to use AI is a pipe dream at the moment. And then there's others who are really pushing on the boundaries. So we're trying to get this middle ground, Gerald, where we, don't break the system, but we also allow it to be more flexible. And I think one of the ways is perhaps looking at, there's a lot of areas where we're very specific, like, 8 to 12 weeks, 10 people, 125 people. And I think actually relaxing some of that, if you look at the new event articles, people haven't seen them. In the new event articles, like PI planning, we've included what is the intent of the event, what is the value to the stakeholders, the value to the business, on the assumption that as you customize the event and the timelines around it, you can still extract the value, but you might choose to do it in different ways. So I think we're going to have to entertain maybe different patterns, Gerald, and different approaches. And I think if we can get a bit less strict in areas, it will enable people to solve problems in slightly different ways.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy.
There is some questions in the chat I can tease out,
Yeah.
uh, or if you
Why don't
see
I why
some.
don't I help you with that? So first one, Carlos, when you speak of AI, can you refer to a specific tool using SAFe Copilot question mark, tool question mark, SAFe Copilot question mark?
We, we, we've always had this approach in SAFe where we try and be as tool agnostic. I mean, you know this, you guys are teaching the AI native classes, you're teaching the AI empowered classes. And I think, I mean, you could speak to this a little bit better than me. The challenge that you have is 1 week, you'll probably go inside a company where Gemini is their tool of choice. Another, it's Chat GPT. So we try and be tool agnostic and we allow, you know, we hope that the methods we put in place work with the tools of choice that the enterprises are making. Is that a fair description, Em?
Absolutely. I would say the courseware is definitely tool agnostic. One of the things that we're finding with both the AI empowered courses and the AI native courses is we find ourselves learning all of them. People always ask, what are you using? Everything, because it's useful to be able to support people with various tools. But the things we're teaching, the way of working that we're teaching, the techniques that we're teaching are very, very broadly applicable, and we don't generally run into any challenges using any of the tools. And if all else fails, we actually say to folks, if you don't have something, just try Copilot. It's SAFe Copilot's a good
Yeah,
place to start if you're on a SAFe course, because it knows SAFe, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Next one for you here, Andrew. How many of these resources will be available to SPCs? What can I expect to access in SAFe Studio? So obviously we're going to send out a bunch of stuff that Andrew's pointed out, but I don't know if there's anything additional you wanted to add there, Andrew.
I mean, the main things I just want to say is so we started by talking about how to build a more adaptive operating model with SAFe. the guidance around the business problems, it's all in the framework articles. So have a look at that. SBC or other folks that have access to the framework, go and look at that. And then we finish by talking about AI-empowered agility again, all in the framework behind that new landing page. So it wasn't that at this point there was anything, specific for SBCs. We've kind of tried to make it generally available. But of course, one thing that we're thinking very deeply about at the moment is, what does it look like to be an SPC, an RTE, a Scrum Master, like one of those change agent roles, SPCT? What does it look like to be one of those actually where your work is now not just about launching an art or implementing SAFe, but it's about launching an AI augmented art, where it's about coaching a team to adopt AI workflows. So just know that behind the scenes, we're working with customers and partners to really make sure that those critical roles that we know have been so successful for SAFe are really represented well in the age of AI. Even the lace, I had a lot of conversations with people about the laces that are being asked now to kind of take on some of the additional AI transformation work as well. So it's really interesting about how those roles in particular, I think, are going to evolve over time as well.
Might add to that, Andrew, I know some of the content you talked about today was the AI content and the customizing SAFe content, and I taught the new AI-empowered ASPC, in fact, to some people on this call, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks ago, and I would say it does an exceptional job of really covering some of that new content around customizing SAFe and the AI-empowered piece, and I can even see people who are on that course nodding, so I'm not even making it up.
That's great. Thank you. No, I appreciate that. And it's not easy, right? Because there's the question that's come in here, the last question there. I'll just read it out loud because it kind of connects to that. It says, what barriers to implementation of this AI operating model have been encountered and how are they addressed? So I think, again, bringing this all together, one of the challenges that we're facing in SAFe, but I hope we're finding a path to solve it, is that AI is one of those things where you go to a class, whether it's the ASPC one that you mentioned, Em, or an AI native class, and you almost by definition will have some people in the audience who, for them, the AI content's a bit too advanced. For others, it's perfect. For others, it's too basic. And what I mean by that is people are doing their own personal exploration of AI, which means that at this point in time, the whole organization is at different levels of knowledge and understanding. And I think one of the biggest challenges that organizations are facing today is they've made investments in AI tools. They've got people in their workforce who know a bit of AI and some that don't. But their biggest challenge is how do they truly operationalize it? And I don't think the barrier to AI is about, are we going to have the ability to learn how a tool works? We'll get that. If you look at our change agent class as an example, it's all about how, when we design these workflows, do we make sure that they adhere to things like ethics, legal, data, risk requirements. I think the biggest challenge for organizations is how do we truly scale AI solutions in a way that is not going to leave us exposed either ethically, legally, from a risk perspective. And I think that fear is holding organizations back a little bit. So some of the work that we're doing in SAFe is about how can AI-empowered agility kind of work to help the enterprise unlock AI at scale, enterprise-grade solutions. And of course, another big part of that is, just like we did with SAFe, we've got to kind of level set across the organization in terms of education, in terms of AI through the courses that Em was mentioning, the AI native courses. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I'm seeing a flurry of questions coming in now.
Yeah.
I've only got 2 minutes, but
there certainly is a flurry of questions. A couple of big ones for you, Andrew. For the adaptive operating model, is the intention that business problems can support continuous improvement, where implementing and adapting SAFe are prerequisites, and or are the business problems essentially providing an alternative entry point where orgs pick and choose parts of the framework they will implement based on their specific problems?
I'm just rereading the first bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's an and. Look, we've written these business problems based on a foundation of SAFe. So yes, are there things, is there a world in which actually someone can look to SAFe for some guidance around lean, agile funding, regardless of whether they're doing all the other things in SAFe? I think the answer is yes. And I think it's always been that way, actually. A lot of people use SAFe as a sort of a knowledge base, and I hope that is useful. The business problems allow you to do that. And I think what the business problems do is they start to bring in other individuals who may not be directly working with SAFe, but certainly, the way we organize them inside the SAFe disciplines, the content you'll see inside them, the solution to those business problems is about, typically addressing them through the mechanisms, practices we have in SAFe, or at least through lean agile ways of thinking. But I would say, like, have a look at them today. There's a great one around measuring product performance. Whether you're doing SAFe or not, it's got a wonderful structure for thinking about how you balance technical feedback, customer feedback, product feedback. So I do think they have a life where they sort of stand alone. The new guidance, of course, is trying to bring them together in a coherent storyline. So I think it's probably an or in terms of the option that you gave us.
Andrew, have you got a couple of minutes, or do you have to run? I know it's getting late
No,
there.
no, I'm fine. I'm fine to keep going.
All right, there's one here. Can you share an example of a public sector organization successfully applying SAFe with AI and what had to be done differently compared to the private sector? Don't know if you have anyone you can.
Well, it's a good question because I think it pushes on one of the challenges we've got at the moment. So we're getting a lot of feedback. The wonderful thing about the SAFe community is we get a huge amount of input from the community as to like how we need to evolve the framework. We've been collecting a lot of feedback from organizations that are building AI augmented teams. Even the latest one is we're getting a lot of feedback around what does an agentic art look like. I will be honest and say I'm racking my brains as to when I think about all those customers, do we have one in the public sector? I'm not sure that I have one I can point to today. We have some public sector customers where they have huge restrictions around AI tooling and AI access. I mean, thinking about some of our government customers, when we've been talking to them about some of the AI courses that we've been developing, their world looks very different. So I'm not sure I've got an example top of my head of a SAFe and AI customer in the public sector. But one of the things we're trying to do over the next few months is actually build a space in the framework potentially where we can bring and share some of these patterns. And we'll definitely make sure that we have some from across all different industries and all different sectors as they start to emerge.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I don't know that I have any names that I can share. I would say Australian public sector, New Zealand public sector, we are certainly seeing adoption and uptake and people finding ways to leverage AI. So appreciate it can be more challenging, but it certainly doesn't seem to be a closed, locked door from what we're seeing.
And don't forget, I know we've got to go shortly, but don't forget, we're really phrasing this as two things. Number one is I think, an agile release train, if we think about what it does two things, right? Number one is it improves the way that it works. And number two is it builds products and solutions. So AI empowered workflows I see as becoming somewhat table stakes for every organization in the world. Whether the output of those workflows are AI solutions or more traditional products and solutions, kind of by the by. But if you're developing software, if you're building hardware, if you're building cyber physical systems, even if you're building, whatever it is, anything that includes customer research, design, ideation, AI is going to be part of those workflows. So I think even in public sector organizations, the biggest challenge we're seeing kind of across organizations generally, like I mentioned, but I'll just repeat it really quickly, is like it's a big deal to go from someone building an AI tool that supports a workflow to building something that truly interacts with a customer and has customer data in it. And those two worlds have a big gap in between them. I think the first world of AI-empowered workflows is the one that is broadly available to all of us today. The step of whether organizations go as far as building AI into their products in the next few months or years, that's the bit where actually it needs some real thought and discipline. But in terms of our arts, we should all be thinking about how to bring AI into the workflows today.
One last one, I think, for you, Andrew. Do you foresee agile lead roles like Scrum Master, RTE, Product Manager, Product Owner being done by an AI agent? And if yes, how long will it be before this materializes? What's your crystal ball say?
So I think I will tell you the side of the fence on this. I am truly excited about the future of roles like Scrum Master, RTE, SPC, Product Owner, Product Manager. These roles are going to evolve significantly. And yes, it might be that there are some things that those individuals used to do that AI is going to do. But I still believe that the most valuable unit of work is a truly high-performing collaborative team. High performance is going to go through the roof through the support of AI. And that team having the ability for someone to coach them in adopting new ways of working has never been more important as it is today. I think the Scrum Master, the RTE, the SPC, the ASPC, the LACE, these individuals have spent the last 5, 10, 15 years understanding what it looks like to work successfully in often challenging environments. I think we need these people more than ever to help understand how do we really embrace AI. And I want to do what we can in the framework to make sure we're evolving these roles in a way that we see that the world needs, so that these roles can continue to kind of really showcase their importance inside organizations when it comes to unlocking the opportunities that AI presents. So I'm excited for these roles. I'm excited for how they're going to evolve, and I don't see those roles dissipating with AI automating what it is they do.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for joining us in your evening. I think I speak for everyone, and there's a bunch of thank yous in the chats as well. So thank you very much for making the time. It was awesome to get caught up on all of that, and we'll have to get you back again soon. I think you may actually finally have beat out Imbar as our most frequent presenter over the years. So I know that's been a goal. So.
I appreciate that. And I want to say big thank you to Em and Adrian, everyone at Pretty Agile for putting this on. And thank you everyone for the questions and the engagement. And yeah, we're always there to hear your feedback and how things are going, whether it's going well or challenging. I mean, that's the lifeblood of how we evolve the framework. So really appreciate the time today. And hopefully, who knows, one day in the future, might get to meet some of you in person.
We would love that. Though I don't know if that's a hint that we all have to come to San Diego, or you're offering to come and visit us.
Or you can invite me to Australia. I mean, either would work.
I keep trying. I keep trying. Thanks very much, everyone.
Sure.
I'll endeavour to get the links out to you in the next 24 hours. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Enjoy your Tuesday night, Andrew.